to these mysterious archways and stairs tutorials. So what we're going to do today is we're going to export and get things going in Blender. So what I've had to do is you can download a free trial if you want to of Sketchup Pro, or I'll have it on my machine and on the lab machines. So you can go that way as well, use a pre-existing one. But what I've done is I've downloaded the SketchUp file that I was using in SketchUp Free. And then what I've done is I've opened it into SketchUp Pro, which is a standalone application. It's a little bit snappier than SketchUp Free, and it's a little bit different in its layout as well, as far as where the tools and things live at the moment. But anyway, so I've got my scene here, and it's set up kind of how I want it. One of the things that I've done is I've coloured some different sections here to add a bit of interest, but also it means that it's easy if you change one color in when we get it into Blender. You change the yellow, you can change it to whatever you want, but it'll change all the yellow in one go. So or it'll change all the green. So if the color's the same color, it will act on all those instances of that color within the model. So it's worth thinking about that just a little bit and making sure that you've got kind of like, maybe got a little bit of a plan for how it's going to go. That being said, I'm just making it up as I go along. So it's cool, there are lots of different ways of doing things. Right, so once I'm in SketchUp and it comes time to what we need to do is we've got to export it out. And the easiest way currently to do that is to go export 3D model. And what we can do is export a collider file. Now you don't really need to touch the options too much, but you don't want to have export two-sided faces turned on. So keep that turned off. And then everything else is fine. And then you can just go export. That two-sided should be turned off as standard, but I was messing around to see what it did. So that's why I had it turned on. So keep that turned off. Export your file. Okay, I've already got one saved there, so I'll just get it all done. Okay, so that is exported. So I've got Blender opened up at the moment. Now, if you haven't used Blender before, you can go and download it from blender.org. It's free download. It's a really great piece of software. So what I'm going to do is, now that I'm in here, I'm going to select this cube, the default cube. It always cops it, and I hit X, delete that cube. Nobody wants it hanging around. Okay, so that's good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go import, and this gives us a list of all our stuff, but we want the collider file, the DAE, which is quite a common file for transferring things around. It's not too bad. It's got a few little problems when you pull it in with duplicate faces. You'll see those if the color goes weird. So it's pretty easy to fix up though. So let's have a look. So I'll go, it's in my downloads. And of course I've got a million things in my downloads, but it'll really only show the DAE files, which is good. And so I'm going to select that one, import collider. It should, because this is simple geometry, comes in fairly fast, and we can see the scene here now, okay? So that's cool. It comes in, the world is quite grey looking, so we might fix that. So if we click on the world image over here, we can see that the colour at the moment, it's just like a grey. It's a bit, not the best looking, so we'll tune that up a bit. We'll be able to see that once we move up to these more like rendered modes. So if I move up here to the collider file, within the collider file, up to this rendered mode, this allows us to kind of like set the strength of the world. So that's pretty good. But we can see everything's faded out a little bit at the moment. Now we've got over here, we've got a light. So let me just zoom in on that. You can see there's a light here. It also shows up in the outliner up here as a light. And down in here, if I click on the light bulb, we'll see that it's currently set as a point light. So that's kind of the most basic and generally worst light going on, because it's just a single point and it attenuates really quickly. So it's really intense, just right in that spot, but it tapers off in its strength quickly. So we're going to change that. We'll change it to a sun for starters. So we've got our sun. Difference with the sun is we can see, instead of being a point light, it's got this big line that comes out from it, and that's the direction of our sun. So what we can do is we can rotate that. So, and you can see that as I rotate it, it changes the shadows, the direction of the shadows. Now the sun always comes in super maxed out, so it's on like 1,000. So let's take that down to like 10. Okay, and it'll reduce the power of the sun for the moment. We're going to tweak the lighting up further as we go along, but that will do us just for the moment. And we can, you can move the sun wherever you want within the scene, but it doesn't change. It's a bit like the sun in real life, is that the sun, you know, shines pretty much the same in one suburb to the next suburb. It's kind of like an even blanket of light. So it doesn't really matter within the model where this like sun sits. It applies like a global type of illumination. But well, when I say global, it's just coming from one direction. So that's what's going on with that. And then as I rotate it, so I can go R for rotate. I can set the axis as the Z, and you can see there I'm just like tweaking the direction of the shadows. So we'll tweak all that lighting later on and get some more interesting results. I'll just tweak it. Maybe the shadows are coming forward, so it's a little bit backlit at the moment. That's good. And if we get down into our scene now, we can see it's quite sort of flat, the lighting, but we can see there, we can see lighting generally around. So it's pretty good. This is using the Eevee render engine, and the Eevee render engine is good, but it's not the most subtle of lighting effects. It's really intended for like high speed, like more like gaming and animation, where you really, you want things to operate in real time. What I might do here is I might actually rotate this sun a bit like this, so we can see a little bit more subtlety in our shadows from the front. Yeah, so our scene's lighting up like that. Okay, so that's Eevee, and it's pretty decent, and you could get good results with this, messing around with the sun and also the world background. But we have access to better renderers within this, and we've got the cycles engine here. So let's click on cycles. So you click on this, looks like the back of a SLR is what it's intended to do, this little icon, and then the render engine will change it to cycles, okay? And it gets going, but what is going on here? We've got a few kind of weird bits of like things that are interacting strangely, and what they tend to be, it's no big deal, is that they tend to be parts of the mesh that have got double geometry, and the Collider files come in and have that. I don't know exactly why. I've never sort of bothered to find out, but it tends to be that you can see there, if what all you really do, go into edit mode. So I'm in edit, I selected my stairs, I go into edit mode, and then I go to the mesh because I want to change the mesh. I want to clean up the mesh, and I'm going to merge by distance, and it'll fix it up, okay? In Blender, you can select multiple objects and then go into their edit mode, but unfortunately, it doesn't work for this merge by distance. So you have to select each one individually, clean it up, and merge by distance. Whoops, but you have to select, go A for all, select all, and then we'll go mesh, clean up. And let's do that. What am I doing? Clean up, merge by distance. Okay, and you'll see that it takes away those black kind of faces, and it'll help to tidy things up. So wherever they are, they're a bit of a mess. We're just gonna, you probably go through and do it to most of your geometry. So let me just do, I'll just do for the moment this, I'll do one more, A for all, mesh, clean up, and I'll just go merge by distance. Beautiful. Okay, so my walkway is looking tidy. I think that actually these, I've got where this green's showing up inside, it's a little bit untidy as well. And we can see down this walkway here that I've got these black, items here being a bit of a pain. I'll do the same thing on the first one, just because I know I can. I'll go mesh, clean up, merge by distance. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's any sort of key command to speed that up either. Okay, but we're making some progress here, which is all good. One of the things that I should have explained here while we're using cycles is we can see that it starts out, if I move it around, you can see it starts out grainy and like everything's made out of sand or something, and then it refines the look as it goes along. So that's really the renderer doing its ray tracing work. So it improves as it goes through these cycles, hence the name cycles. You can change those over here. So there's max samples, and we can change the samples. It can sample less within the window, but more on final renders and things like that as well. It's it's quite versatile like that. But these ray tracing renderers are a little bit slower than like something like Eevee, because of the way they've got to do the calculations. I'll just do that while I'm sort of here. So if you've got a computer that's got like a ray tracing graphics card, they'll really power through this sort of action, but you do need to, with the NVIDIA cards, make sure you've got the studio drivers installed, not just the game installers. I'm currently rendering on a MacBook M1, and they're pretty good, actually, great. As far as a laptop solution goes, Apple have really come good with these new M machines. Right, okay, so I've basically got my scene coming together. Now, I talked a little bit before about what you can do when you're in adjusting your scene. I can come down here, this is the shader ball, so it's this round circle. It's got like a little bit of a sort of, hatched kind of pattern on it. And we'll see that we've got our base colour here. So I've got a pastel yellow set, but we can tune this up. So if I want to change the colour of this in any way, so let's change it to like this sort of like, deep magenta pink colour. When I change one item that uses that exact colour, then it's going to change them all. I must have a slightly different colour set on these ones over here, by the looks of things, but I'll see that magenta is also set in here, so I can actually select these ones and I can set them. Yep, that's good, and that's good. So I think it was just the way that I selected the material in the before in SketchUp. Okay, so if I want to change this one, I can, I can fade this out to a more pastel green, or I can push it up, into more intensity. It's all there to tweak around, and it'll adjust them as you go. So that is really good. Everything in Blender, it's really nice and adjustable. It's really fantastic for that. This world is looking a little bit more grey than I would like. We'll fix that up as we go along, I think. But it's okay. Now, one of the other things that we've got that's different in Blender to SketchUp is we've got this thing down here, which is a camera. Looks like a kind of sideways pyramid. It's got a little triangle on the top, tells us what the top of the lens is, just so that we know as we're rotating things around. Okay, so we might come in and have a look at our scene for starters, and we might decide that, yeah, this is where we're going to kind of like take a shot from. It's a pretty boring angle. Usually like looking in and looking a bit lower, getting in amongst things is a bit more interesting. But just for starters, I'm going to start looking from this kind of angle. So what I want to do is come up to view, and all I want to do is like align a camera. So I'll go align view, and we'll go align active camera to view, and that'll do the business. Okay, so now this is what the camera's seeing. We can zoom into this a bit more if we want. And so now our render's kind of like starting to come together. Remember that we haven't really highly adjusted our lighting in this scene yet. There's more stuff to go, but we're just going to get a bit of camera, getting a look at our scene. Oof, that is annoying me there. Excuse me, I've just got to fix that up because I don't like that. Let's clean that up. Let's, merge by distance. Nice one. Okay, that's a little bit better. Oh, they're annoying me too. Let's just fix that up. Let's just do the mesh, do the cleanup, merge by distance, and we'll just merge this one by distance as well. I don't know why they show up in the ray tracer, but they don't show up in Eevee when you do this. There's obviously some technical reason, but I don't know what it is precisely, so I won't even comment on that. Okay, that's cool. So this is our scene. So we've got our camera here. We can sort of select the camera up here in our outliner if we want. And we can see that down here, this gives us all the settings for our camera. Now, if you're a photographer or, you've got some kind of like you love cameras, then this is cool because you've got like all the cameras, all the lenses you could want, and it doesn't cost you anything, so that's great. So often with a focal length for something like this, we're starting at 50mm, which is pretty kind of standard kind of camera length, but we can go down to something a bit wider quite easily. We can set that up. You can see that we've got shifting. I don't know about that. I don't know if it's tilt shifting or what exactly that is. But we've got depth of field down here is cool. So we can set depth of field, and we can set like where it is. You can click on an object that you want to make sure that that's in focus. So maybe I say, yeah, I really want that circle, that wall in focus, which is cool. So it's got group there. And then we can adjust our f-stop, like up or down. So let's go down. We can go down to some ridiculous f-stop. If we want to, but a lot of this is dependent on the scaling of the scene, so we need to take that into account. But that's cool. So so we've got, we can change our depth of field. We can, you can change the sensor size, etc. We can go crazy. You can show limits, which kind of shows how far the camera can see. We can, camera mist? I don't know much about that. Try and avoid that. Safe areas, etc. Camera, we've got auto camera, we can change the sensor. It's amazing. I think it's, incredible system. But what I might do is just turn off. And pass patout is like, how dark it looks outside of what the camera sees. So that's fully adjustable. I can make it like really light, or I can make it like fully black, Fully black's probably pretty good, but it's not bad to just have a little bit of vision through just to see what's sitting outside our scene. But as it is, we're looking pretty good. So that is pretty much our current setup. It's not too bad. It's not perfect, but we're looking okay. Our material's looking pretty good. Subsurface, I prefer that to be just a touch higher if we're going to do that. And we can see that within our materials, everything that's come in from SketchUp, it's a pretty standard material. There's not much to really know about. The roughness, everything's got a little bit of roughness on it, which is fine. Subsurface, you don't really need subsurface on it. That probably just slows down the calculation, so you could take subsurface off your materials if it's got it on there. Subsurface scattering, we don't need that. One of the main things it hasn't got, we don't want specularity. That'd be a bit of a pain. So make sure that specularity is turned down. Roughness, that's going to slow down the rendering a little bit. So that's just kind of like the texture of the surface. So yeah, we'll keep that down for the moment, and we can sort it out a bit later. And the main shader we're using is just the principled. So the principled BDSF, which is what it is kind of a standard format that swaps between renderers. So, okay, that's all looking good. We're kind of ready to go. Max samples, we might put that down when we're ready to render. We might maybe start off not too high. Depends how long. It can take a while to do each sample. So I'd be tempted more to do something like 300 samples or something like that just for starters to get things going. So you might put in 300 samples here. That's still a fair bit actually. Let's tune that down. 300 is going to look pretty decent, but I'm going to put in 150 just to kind of like, just for getting things going. Light paths, max bounce is 12, that's all pretty decent. So this is just looking at how the light is handled within the scene. There's nothing too much we need to worry about at the moment. We're only just talking about first render, but we're looking pretty good, okay? So, do we want to render from out here? I don't know if we do actually. Let's have a look at something a little bit more, exciting. So what we might do is I'll tear out the window. So I just click up in the corner and drag it out, and I might tear it. Ugh, that's uncool. That is totally uncool. I don't really love this windowing system sometimes. I really want to, what do I want to do with that? That's a bit of a mess. Let's just fold that up for the moment. We'll just ignore me doing that, and I'll just pull this across into two windows so that if I come out, I can see my camera. And I know my camera's around here somewhere. There it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is zoom out a little bit, just using a scroll wheel on this one. I'm going to kind of like come in. And just as I was saying, the Mac laptops are genius for handling this sort of thing. It looks like this is frozen on me, so I'll just come back to you in the next video with some camera controls.